Welcome back to the Maryville Sports Podcast. As we continue our State of the Program series, somebody whose program's in a pretty good state after coming off of a undefeated season, a national championship, Ben McCollum, Bearcat men's basketball, joins us today. How you doing today, Ben?
I'm great. How about yourself?
Oh, not too bad. Just getting into it here. Did the second championship feel any different than the first? You had that feeling a couple years back, and now coming off the undefeated season, obviously, how just talk about that a little bit in the aftermath of that. You had a pretty busy schedule afterwards. I know picking up a few awards and stuff like that.
Yeah, it was a totally different feeling with this one versus the last one. I think with the first national title, it was 3 or 4 years in a row we had lost in the Sweet 16, and had teams that I thought could have competed at the Elite Eight level and possibly won a national championship. So that year's team was very, very hungry. It was a fight all year long, and just an edge to them that a lot of teams don't have. I think with this team, the difference is there wasn't a lot of expectations surrounding this team, and they were very, very relaxed. It just snuck up on us, really. The success that happened, where all of a sudden we looked up and we were 38-0, and you just don't even remember what happened with it. And it was a really interesting year in regards to that, and obviously a fun year to be a part of.
And just with, like you mentioned, kind of sneaking up on you and everything, the being able to start three underclassmen, two all freshman backcourt, obviously. Do you think? How do you think they kind of handled that success as the season went on, and was that maybe one of the more impressive parts of just how those young guys kind of handled having that target on their back?
Yeah, I think they were borderline oblivious to it. It was like they just didn't care at all, about the pressure, about being freshmen. They weren't caught up in that, and they just kind of stayed with the process and went about their business. I think anytime there's pressure associated with the situation, your focus needs to go directly on the process of just completing the next task. And too often, I think you see in sports and even life that people will try to get ahead of themselves and focus on that result, and that puts pressure on yourself. So those kids in particular did a great job of sticking with that process, just getting a little bit better every day, and not paying attention to the outside pressures.
Speaking of getting ahead of ourselves a little bit, we're probably a couple months away from any preseason polls or something, but I'd be willing to bet that you guys will probably enter the season's number one in the country. Coming off that undefeated season, just how have you seen the guys kind of come into the off season, and how have you been happy with the way they keep working, even though kind of reaching that goal last year?
Yeah, I think last year we saw how much preseason deals matter
Yeah.
because we were number two in our conference. But yeah, I think that this year is going to be considerably more difficult this upcoming season than the previous. There's obviously a target on your back, and that's great. I think the biggest thing that is difficult is the ability to handle success. And just anywhere that you see in any walk of life, that is by far and away more difficult than handling adversity or being hungry to get a national championship. They have one, and so how do you then motivate yourself to get another one and to continue with that process? It'll be a challenge this season, and we're excited about that. Hopefully our guys are working hard, and hopefully they understand that. But I could create some false motivation over the summer and see if I could get it through to them. But I think the big thing with them is, are they self-motivated? Do they want for more?
And considering the youth of the team, obviously that's a great thing. You'd like to have all those guys back, but before we get into the individuals on the recruiting trail, does that make it easier, or or maybe more difficult when you're chasing those new players to obviously people want to play with the best. So bringing them in around those other players is good, but also you have a hope of who your backcourt's going to be for like the next couple years and stuff like that. Does that make it more difficult or easier, or what's that like on the to have all those returners when you're trying to bring in new kids?
It depends on who you're recruiting. So there's two kind of kids. There's ones that embrace and love competition because they know that it's going to make them better. It's going to challenge their comfort zone. It's going to challenge them as people, and it's going to ultimately set them up for life to be successful and obviously win championships and win games. And then there's the second that really wants more of a guaranteed I want to play. And what we're running into, especially with the new generation of kids, is more of the I want to play kind of kids, and I want a little bit more of a guarantee. And so there's a little bit of a fear of competition and that's what's being used against us in the recruiting trail. Well, look at who they have at this position. Look at who they have. Yep, we do have good players at those positions. Come beat them out and come compete and come be made better and come win championships. And so that's our sell, and we'll get the right kids because it'll be kids that want to be a part of that and want to be made better and want to compete for their spot.
Yeah, you kind of talked about that last year a little bit, but what's the what's the ideal type of kid you want to recruit? Obviously, last year we talked during the year about not having as full of a roster as other teams and kind of having those select kids. You lost 3 in the off season, you gained 3, so you're still below where some teams are going to be this season as far as just sheer numbers. So what's kind of the thought process behind that, and how do you like just kind of zeroing in on your kids, I guess?
Well, I would prefer to be at 13, and so right now we're at 11. I'm hoping to get to 12 or 13 by the season starts. That's my preference. Last year it just happened that we had somebody leave 3 days in, and so that made it fairly tough. But um, part of it, I'm a big believer in. It's better to not have somebody than to have somebody that you're essentially going to have to kick off at the end of the season, or somebody that doesn't fit your culture, because they depreciate your program a lot quicker than just having nobody. And so that's what we've always taken. It's becoming more and more difficult because kids now sign earlier and earlier, and more people are essentially taking high school kids, kind of copying what we had done, which is, again, a form of flattery, I guess. But and so that makes it even more difficult. And so you really have to find a select group of kids that's willing to give themselves to the program, for the betterment of it. And we felt like we've done a good job of finding those kids. It's just we need more of them, and we need to get our numbers up to roughly 13.
And just going into this year's recruiting, obviously, like I mentioned before, you've got the 4 returning starters. You got Kirk, who started sometimes throughout the season, started the season as a starter. But how important was it for you to find some guys who can maybe contribute right away to help out that? Obviously, they're going to compete with the returners for spots, but if nothing else, help out that bench and give you guys a little bit of depth going into the fall and the winter here.
Yeah, I think as long as the depth is quality, it's depth. I think too often people think that numbers are depth. They mistake it. Depth is, can I put that guy in the game and can he keep winning the game for us? And so last year, although we had 11 players, we had a lot of depth because I had 10 guys that, although some of them didn't play hardly at all throughout the season, I felt comfortable if we had to play them that they were going to be good for us. And we feel the same this year. I think it would be nice to have 1 or 2 more of those guys that we really trust to be able to put into games and continue to win and continue to compete at a high level.
And before we get into the new coming freshmen, you've got a freshman who's back from last year, Luke Waters. the other two freshmen or true freshmen from last season, Diego and Xavier Rhodes, obviously didn't redshirt, but Luke took that redshirt year. What have you seen from Luke just coming back and getting back into it this season and this summer?
Yeah, Luke has Luke is similar to what we have in regards to length that can shoot. He's obviously long, he's physical, he's tough, he plays hard, but he can shoot. And so it's difficult to defend him on ball screens because he's difficult to switch because he can also post up. And so he brings that dynamic that we really like in our post players, that they're versatile, they can pass, they can shoot, they can do a little bit of everything post up. And so I think that'll help us, early on as we get comfortable with some of our incoming freshmen.
After seeing what you were able to do last year with the five shooters and replacing Brett with a different type of player and more of a shooting presence, is that kind of something you don't ever want to go back from? Is it or is it just kind of depending on who you have that season? But obviously you've got Tyler who can provide that physicality, and
Yeah.
and some of your shooters can be physical too. But what's just how much did you enjoy, I guess, that five shooter lineup, and is that tempting to just stick with that moving forward?
Yeah, it made us difficult to defend for sure, and it made them play different people. I think that we'd like to stick with that, but at Division II, you can't really. It's hard to get exactly what you want consistently, and so although I would like to say, yeah, that's what we're going to do from here on out, that's probably not going to happen. So we'll still continue to try to get true fives and guards that are really good drivers and cutters first and foremost, and those guys have a role, and we can find ways to score with them, and they bring a lot defensively that some of the other guys can't. So it's not a necessary thing, but it's something that I would like to continue to do.
And getting into some of the new players around, you're going to be around the program this year. Your first recruit to come in was Wes Dreamer, a 6'6" wing from Lincoln East, and before that he was at a smaller Class C school in Nebraska, but he transferred to Lincoln East last year, I believe, and had 17.5 points and 8.4 rebounds a game. Just what do you see from Wes, and what, obviously he was your first player you brought in, so what kind of attracted you to his game?
Well, he's got great length and he can shoot. So he's about 6'7", 6'8" now.
Okay.
He was 6'6" when we signed him, and just grew throughout the season. And he's got length. He can shoot. He can post up. He's similar to what we have. He's athletic. He's won his whole life, and he fits exactly what we like in a player and a person. And we're definitely very fortunate enough to have that kind of versatility, and that's what we really seek, is that versatility in our recruiting process. And he is exactly what we like.
Is it kind of like I mentioned, him transferring and kind of moving up, well, several divisions in Nebraska? Just that he's shown that ability to switch from players he's been playing with his whole life to join a new situation, similar to a college situation, just getting used to new players and everything. Is that something that kind of bodes well for him, I guess, and how he can handle that transition?
That'll help him a ton. I was glad that he chose to do that because just coming from the smaller schools, it makes it difficult to transition just in your weight program and the physicality of the game and the athleticism. And he's already taken one of those steps by going to Lincoln East and going against better competition. So for us to have him here, I think that gave him an extra year essentially, to help him get ready for the grinds of Northwest Missouri State, and we're definitely lucky that he did that.
And another long guard, Mitch Mcgary, I believe I'm pronouncing that right.
Mm-hmm.
From Illinois, a 6'5" guard, shot 44% from three. You like to see that, obviously. 14 points a game. Just talk about Mitch a little bit and why he was a good fit.
Well, Mitch comes from a winning program. I think they won 30 games this past season. He is an elite shooter. And when I say elite, I mean he's on that. He's got a quick trigger. He can shoot from. I mean, he's 5 feet behind the line. He's almost more productive from there than right on the line. He's an elite shooter. And then he can make some plays off the bounce. He's a good passer. He understands how to win. He's got good enough length. And I think again that's what we like in our program is winners that can shoot and have a good feel and move the basketball and stuff like that. I mean, he could average, on a 500 team, he could average, 20, but he's on a team that won 30 games, and so some games it's, he's going to have 20, and some games he's going to have 10, and so that bodes well for what we do here.
I'm already looking forward to Trevor Hudgens' NBA player comps if he's got that much elite shooting ability. So we'll have to stay tuned and figure out who he reminds him of.
There you go. Yeah, just wait.
And then last but not least here, Kristen Stanislav.
Yep.
You're going to have to correct me there maybe, but a local kid from up in Glenwood, Iowa, another 6'5" kid, 20.8 points a game, 8.2 rebounds, won a state championship as a junior. Just bring in a guy like Christian. Just how nice was that to add a local kid with that much talent?
I think he's only scratched the surface as to how good he can be too. He's deceptively athletic, and I'm not sure that he's used all of his athletic capabilities on the basketball floor and really put him on there. Part of that is when you're at a 3A school, a lot of times you play multiple sports, and so you're not able to focus quite as much on one sport. I think with him, if he develops that ability to defend multiple positions and then really becomes an elite shooter, I think he could really take off as a player. Just with his 6'4", 6'5" frame, I think that size and length, really will help him at the college level, and especially here at Northwest. And again, the perfect kid in regards to intangible talent. Just a good kid and wants to compete for a spot, wants to come in and fight for it and play at that level. And I think he's going to be very successful for us here.
And now you talked about earlier, still working on the recruiting trail a little bit and everything. With that, is that kind of the main focus of the summer at this point? I don't think you can be in the gym with the guys or anything at this point. So what's the kind of take us through your summer and what's that been about, and when can you get back into the gym with the guys?
Yeah, lots of youth baseball is what mine's been. No,
championship winning
that's right.
softball too.
Yeah, absolutely. In regards to what we do over the summer, a lot of it's recruiting 2020s and then trying to clean up your 2019s, and then just some housekeeping items in regards to the program, which you kind of catch back up, and then you go into the season and you get back behind and you catch back up during the summers. And that's what we're doing right now, just finishing our schedule as well. Just a lot of different things, housekeeping items like that, and then watching some film and, hoping your kids are getting in the gym consistently.
When you make those deep runs, I know I've talked with Rich about this before, but when you make those deep runs, is that sometimes you feel like you're playing catch up in recruiting at that point, or obviously kids want to win, so you're take the deep runs rather than not have them, obviously, but you kind of got to catch up a little bit during the summer and even prepare ahead the summer before to know that other people maybe will get a month quicker start on the recruiting trail than you will?
You do. You get way behind in recruiting process because it's hard to recruit when you're making that kind of run because you're scouting for the next opponent consistently. That's again though why we need to get stuff done a little bit earlier in the recruiting process, and it's trending that direction where more and more people are signing early, and so we're just going to have to be more productive during our summer going into that year. Get a few more kids signed early, and then see where it goes after that in the late signing period.
How about your own personal recruitment? Your name was floated out in rumors for several different jobs and everything like that. Just how do you handle that when that's part of recruiting, obviously? And you talked about other people making pitches against you guys. I'm sure that's one that people try to throw out there. So how do you kind of handle that, and how? Just talk a little bit about staying in Maryville and why obviously you wanted to stay here for at least another year in the
Sure.
foreseeable future.
Well, just more in regards to the kind of recruiting process, what we always say to kids that ask that question is, well, wouldn't you rather play for a coach that is getting asked that question, that is wanted? And, even if it's for a year, 2, 3, 4, whatever amount of years that you play for, you want to play for a guy that other people want, because that means that there's a reason that they want certain coaching staffs and stuff like that. So I don't think that's a negative thing, and we always try to make sure that kids understand that's not a negative, that's a positive. Um, Staying here, I think the big thing with that is you have to make sure that you stay present in what you're doing, and that's what I've always been a big believer in, and I'll continue to do that. Is whatever comes will come, but you've got to make sure that you stay present and make everything around you better and better and better, and then just see where it takes you. And so that's the process that we take. A lot of jobs that do come open are during postseason runs anyway, and so you're focused on your team, and that's what I've been focused on, and that's what I'll continue to stay focused on.
Well, now that the softball season's ended, you can turn your focus back to noon ball and getting ready for that season. But I thank you for joining us today, Ben, and good luck this season.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.